Welcome to the podcast, Tracy. I am really looking forward to this conversation about your book, Bloodlines. And this is such an important dialogue to have, and I'm just honored that you came here to talk about your book and your experience with your daughter. So before we get into the things that I really would love to ask you and talk about, if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to my audience.
Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Tracey Yokas.
In this episode, I'm sitting down with Coach Suzanne Hanna
an artist,
to discuss
a facilitator,
anxiety,
I hope sometimes
alcohol,
an inspirer,
and teen girls.
I am really
Suzanne
passionate
talks about her decision
over
to
the
stop
last 12
drinking
years of our journey
and how she made it her
about
mission
breaking down the
to help
stigma
girls
around
feel
talking
heard,
about mental health,
more comfortable in
mental
their own
illness,
skin,
mental wellness,
and more equipped to
Every
handle
single one
life's
of us has a
curveballs.
brain inside our head.
Suzanne
so
and I
we all
agree
have mental
that
health,
girls deserve
and
to be heard
it's
and
been,
supported.
Since the pandemic,
And speaking of
more
being heard
important
and
than
supported,
ever
I just
for
created a
us
brand
to
new
all start
exclusive
talking about mental
podcast
health
episode for you
because whether we
moms
know
called
someone
Speak Up
or
with
not who is
Confidence.
struggling, we know. The statistics
Whether
bear
it's
this
asking
out.
your
So I
teen
just
to help
really
out around the
appreciate
house,
having the opportunity
negotiating
to
a
be
raise
here
at
with
work,
you and to share
or
our
setting
story.
a boundary with family.
Yes, and
this episode is packed with practical tips
really
to help
enjoy.
you
I
speak
came
up
across your
confidently,
name and your
clearly,
book through another
and
friend of
with
mine, Darlene
compassion.
Childress. You were on her
And
podcast.
also included
and
is a
I
guided
saw your
meditation
book
to
and I
help
saw
you
what it was
feel more
about,
grounded
and I
and confident
immediately
when you
said to
speak.
myself,
It's
I want
totally
to have a
free.
conversation with
Click
her.
on the link in
And
the episode description
for
to
multiple
access
reasons.
today.
Obviously, being a
Now,
podcast host,
onto
I'm
the
here
show.
to support other parents, but also personal reasons. I myself, as I've talked about on my podcast, have a daughter who has really struggled with her mental health. Both of my daughters have, but that's kind of what got me into
To have
my
you
line
here,
of work.
we were just
And
talking about
I
some
was
things
like,
we
I
have
need to
in
read that
common
book
before we
I need
hit
to talk more
record.
with Tracy about
And
this
I thought,
and bring her on
let's
the
go ahead
show.
and
So
dive in because
thank
we've
you
got a
so
lot of
much
things
for
we want to
coming on
cover.
and taking the time.
So let me just begin by having you
so your
tell
book,
my audience a
Bloodlines,
little bit about yourself
It's
and
so
your
beautifully
background.
written. It's
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. I'm so happy to be
wasn't
here.
easy for
I'm
me to
Suzanne
read,
Hanna.
but
a lifelong
at the
educator.
same time,
I
it
spent
was
25
really
years
great for me
in
to read
education.
because there are multiple themes
90%
throughout the
of that
book
time
that
was in
resonate
public
with me so
education.
deeply.
And I began
One,
as
of
an
course,
English
being
teacher,
with
a high school
your
English teacher.
walking, your
And
journey
I
with
moved
walking
from that
next to your
position
teenager as
really
she was
quickly
struggling with mental health
to
challenges.
a position
The
at
other
a
also
central
being your
office where I was
experience
actually
growing
a
up
program director for
and
English
your
language
body
arts
image
for
issues
all the middle and high
and all
schools
of
in
the
the
narratives
district,
that
and it
were
was a
presented
district
to
with
you
70
growing
plus
up
schools,
as
so
they
it was
were
a big
to
job.
all of
I'm still
us.
not quite sure how I got it,
And
but I
the
did.
challenges
And
that definitely came with
I
that,
did that,
and really
then
how the two
after that, I
coincide.
moved into
And the first
administration
thing that I'd
in
really
school.
love to
So
touch
I became
upon
an
is
assistant principal at a middle school,
there was
and
a
then moved
moment in the
to a
book
big
where
high
you were in
school,
your
and then another
therapist's
big high
office, which
school. And my last
being in
year
your
in
therapist's
education
office
was as
so
an assistant principal at a
important
middle
when you're
school, which is
in
always an
any
interesting
situation, but
experience.
especially when you're helping
And
your teenager walk through some really mental health challenges.
I
But
am a mother of two
your
kids. I
therapist
have
mentioned
two
something
teenagers.
about
My son's in
how
college.
your
My daughter's
daughter needs to
13.
see you
And I've
caring
been
for
married for
yourself.
24 years. We live on a
And
farm in
what you had
North
said
Carolina in the
was
foothills, and our
here's
house
a
was
quote,
built in
I
1770.
wondered how a mother could
So
take
it's
care of
quite
herself
historic. It's
while
on the
her
National
child
Historic
languished.
Register, and we've got
And
chickens
that
and lots of gardens
really hit
and
me
two Australian
because it
shepherds.
is one of the
just normal,
biggest
fun
challenges of
family.
being a
Very
caretaker.
lucky and blessed in that
Is
regard.
how do
for
I
sure.
care for myself,
And
especially
right now, I'm
when
excited
my
because I
child
opened a
is
new
struggling
business
so
where
much.
I am
So
a life
could
coach
you
for
tell me a
college
little
and
bit
teen
more
girls.
about your
And so
experience with
I
that?
have taken my experience in
Absolutely.
public
Thank
education
you
and
for
blended
bringing
it
that
with
up. I mean,
certification
talking
in
about
effective liminal
self-care
psychology.
and moms in
So I
particular
help
caring
girls
for
work through
ourselves
anxiety
is
with their
really high in
mindset,
my
just
list
giving
of
them a safe
priorities.
space
I
because
think I
we all know
hope
that
younger
teens
generations are a
thrive when
little
they
bit better at
have
this,
strong
and if they listen to
relationships with
podcasts like this, they
trusted
will be,
adults.
because
So
I
that's
think
what I offer for the girls.
one of the
and
primary
I love
things,
the
first of
coaching
all,
job. It's
is
my
that
calling.
we
I love
were sold a bill
teenagers.
of goods about what self-care
It's just-
actually
it's
is
always just been
and the purpose
I'm a
behind
magnet
it.
for teenagers. I
So
connect
while,
with
of
them.
course,
I
I
think they're
love
the
a
most
good mani-pedi as much as the next
discerning
guy,
and
I love a
interesting
massage,
and
I love all of
emotionally
those kinds of
available
things.
people that
In
I know.
my purview
And
or
I
my
love their
opinion,
honesty,
that's only
and I
really
love how they
half
can
of the
sniff
battle,
out a fake
because
in any
that's the
room.
sort of self-care
They're
that
like
works
little
its
hound
way
dogs.
into us
Yeah,
from the
they're amazing.
outside.
Yeah.
And I look at it
And
more
that's
as a
one of the
two-way
reasons,
street,
or
so we
there's
can
many of the
get
reasons why I
1,000
wanted to
trillion
have you on this
mani-pedis.
podcast,
If we are
because
not okay
you and I
on
have
our
so much
inside,
in common with
those
our
mani-pedis
background
aren't
in
going to make a
education
difference.
and
So
our
if we have patterns
passion
from our
for
childhood,
helping
unhealthy patterns,
teenagers,
which most of us
of
do,
course,
we're
you
human beings.
directly help
Our
the
parents
teenagers,
weren't
and I've
perfect,
done that,
we're
and I
imperfect.
still
It has
do that
nothing to
in the
do
current,
with
but I
blame or
really
any of that
also
stuff.
focus
We
on
just
the
learned what
parents,
we
and
learned
so
about it.
I
Plus, in our
definitely wanted to bring
consumeristic
you on
culture,
because you have a
it's about
scope of
spending money,
experience
it's about
that I
looking a
don't,
certain
and that's
way and
working
whatever,
in
and all of that
middle
has
school
nothing
and
to
high
do with it.
school.
So
I
what
have
I
a
really
background in
had to
education,
learn
of course,
ultimately
and I had
was
teens
that
myself.
taking
But
care
you're coming
of
from the
myself
perspective of
is
working
an act of
in
service to the
public
people that I love
education
most.
with this demographic.
And
So
I literally
I knew you
cannot
would have a lot of
be
really
the
great
mother
things
I want to
to
be, the
add
friend,
and
the
offer
wife, the
to
person,
my audience.
if
So
I
thank you so
never
much
put
for
myself
coming
on my list.
Yes,
If I
thank you.
never prioritize my
wonder
health,
if-
my wellness, my
I'm
relationships,
sure there are
my
people
wants and my
listening
needs.
who have never
Now,
heard of,
that comes with a learning
and you're gonna
curve
have
for
to
a lot of
remind
us
me,
because when we
liminal
start to dip our
psychology.
toe
What was that?
into
It's
this
not-
idea of
it's
taking care of
effective liminal
ourselves,
psychology.
regardless of where
And so
our family
effective, like
members
the normal
may
word
be
effective,
in
and
their own
liminal
struggles,
is a word that
this
seems to
can really,
have come
especially
around
if we
in
have
our space,
people-pleasing tendencies
more
or
now
any
than
of
I've
these
ever
other
heard it. It
kind of
means
things
like
that so
when
many
you're
of us
in
have,
betwixt and between.
we can
So it's the
really
space where
be
change
just
tends to happen.
broadsided
It's
with
when,
guilt
you know,
and shame,
when you're
which
between
is
two big
why
spaces,
therapy
that's when
is so
you're the most
important,
ripe for change and
because
for understanding
we
really who you are.
don't know this
And
stuff
so the
until we have a
psychology
reason to
behind
know
it
it.
is that it's
And
it's really
how
the
can
study
we
of
deal with
human behavior
something that we didn't
and
even know
the
we needed
science
to
of
deal
self.
with without
And
somebody
so
to
it's
help
helping
us
people
and guide us through
understand
that process?
how they
So
feel,
I
and that
firmly
emotions drive
100%
behavior.
believe there's not a
So
person
I
on the
really
planet,
loved
literally,
this
who could
because
not benefit from good
in my
therapy.
experience, I
I
had
know,
so
of
many
course,
girls
that there are
suffering in my
problems with
office,
access and
and
all
so many
kinds of
girls suffering in
things.
classrooms
But
that I've visited, and in the
ultimately,
hallways and in the
plus, where do we think
cafeteria.
the stamina
And
comes
I mean,
from?
Jennifer, I would say
Supporting a
90% of
child
of
who
the
is having
like
significant
health
mental health struggles
emergency calls I would get
is,
to
for anyone who
classrooms
is
would be
going through it
girls
now,
having
you
panic
already know,
attacks.
I don't have to say
And
it.
I would
It
sit
is
on the floor
so
with so many
chaotic,
girls,
so
walk around the school
terrifying,
with them,
so
you know, help calm them
draining,
down.
and I
it
did
just
all the things.
it
I
killed
completely
my
stopped
soul
taking care of
to see these
myself.
kids
Not that I
suffering.
was doing great
And girls
before.
would be in my
I
office
withdrew from
just
all my
crumbling under
friends.
pressure.
I
And pressure
neglected
not
all
only
the
from,
things
the
that,
school, but
used
from their
to be
parents
part of
and
who I
from
was.
society
And this
and
only
from the
further
media. And their
exacerbates the
phones
problem.
were
So it's such an
were
important thing to talk
diminishing
about,
all
because
of
it's
their
very, very
self-confidence.
hard to
And
shift
the
that
pressure they were
narrative
putting
when
on
we've been
themselves
convinced
was
our whole
breaking my
life that
heart.
it's selfish
And I kept telling my
or
colleagues, like I remember
wrong
talking
or
to
any
the
of those
social
things.
workers and the counselors and just
That's
saying,
so true.
guys,
And as
we're not doing enough for
caretakers
these
and
girls.
nurturers, and
They're
especially as
suffering.
women,
And I would have all these
we have been
precious
conditioned to
parents
put
in
the
my
needs of
office
other
just
people
with
first,
boxes of tissue,
to our detriment,
frustrated,
very much so.
doing all the
And
right things.
what you're saying
You know,
definitely
just
resonates with
good
me.
people doing
I
all
was
the
definitely
right
somebody
things,
who would
but
always
just
say
unable
everybody
to
should go to
connect with their
therapy.
kid
Everybody needs
or
to go to
unable
therapy.
to
And was I going to
understand,
therapy?
why she was
Nope.
suffering so deeply
It wasn't
with
until
such
my daughter
debilitating
was in
anxiety.
crisis
And
that I
parents just
started going to
needed
therapy.
help.
And thank
And I
goodness
would,
I
as I said, I
did.
talked to my colleagues,
And
and I'm like,
also,
guys,
this notion of
we are not serving
self-care
these kids. And
is
and I
the
felt
thought
this,
behind it can often be
I guess
like,
my
it's
knowing
caring
just
for
knew
yourself that
something was
feels
coming.
good.
And
But
then when
therapy
I learned about
doesn't
effective liminal
necessarily
psychology, I thought,
feel good.
this can give me the
It doesn't feel
certification
good
that
at
I
all
need
sometimes.
to
It's
be able
like
to work
doing
with
that
kids
hard work
one-on-one
yourself so
and to
that
be
you
able
can be
to have my
strong
own business and
for
coach
the
girls
people you care
one-on-one
about the
and to
most.
help them
And that was
understand
definitely a
that their
theme throughout
behavior
your
is driven
book
by
that
their emotions,
I
and that
noticed and
we can learn
appreciated,
so much
and
about our emotions, just through
highlighting the
something as simple
importance
as
of
naming our
that.
emotions. And
Whether your
and
child
that,
is struggling in
through
crisis or not,
neuroplasticity and
it's
through
essential for you to be
mindset
able
shifts,
to
we really
address
have
the things
control
that are
of how
weighing
we
you down
feel
so that
and
you're
how we
not
behave.
passing them on
And
to
at
the people you care
48,
about.
I know that. I wish I'd known it when I was 15.
And I mean, as
right?
parents,
and so that's
don't we
why
want our
I think
children,
it's wonderful
regardless
to
of
work with
their
girls and help
gender,
them
to
realize that
grow
the
into
power that they
adults
have
who take
and
care of
and to
themselves?
teach them,
I
help them learn
mean, I
self-compassion
totally,
and to understand
totally
that how they
missed.
feel is
And
perfectly
I mean,
normal.
for years,
And
like
and
it
it's
took me
just their
10 years
brain
to write the book,
responding in
as
a
I
way
said.
that brains
So
respond.
I
And so
missed
I think,
that I was
yeah,
wanting my
yeah.
daughter
Normalizing
to do,
is a big
my
part
therapist
Yes.
was asking me to do what I
There's
wanted my daughter
nothing
to do,
wrong
which
with
was
you,
ultimately
and
to take better
normalizing
care
it
of
and then
herself.
understanding it and then having a plan for
and we can
how
only
to
actually
address it
control
so that it's
ourselves.
not
Yes.
So we can't
taking
control
your peace
anybody
and
else.
impacting the
So
quality
I
of
just
life.
totally didn't get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
leading by
Curiosity,
example.
when you
for
were
sure.
in the
They see
educational
you,
setting,
it's
you mentioned that
normalized
it was
this is how
mostly
we care for
girls.
ourselves.
Why do you think that is?
The hard times and through the good times. This is a lifestyle choice.
I've really thought
Yes,
about that, having a teenage
100%.
son.
It's a point of view.
And
Yes, that's how I'd like to say it as
think
well.
Right, exactly. And it's like
girls,
challenging
like I was
those
saying earlier, teenagers
paradigms that we were raised
particular
with.
have a
Like, you got to
discernment
hold
that
it in,
others
you
don't,
got to
but
toughen
especially
it up, you
teenage
got to
girls.
stuff it down.
And
right?
they have
We're gonna,
this
just
level
suck it
of,
up and move on.
I don't know if it's like where they are
But then it
developmentally,
comes up later
but
in a
their
different way, so.
emotional they're emotionally charged.
Absolutely 100%
And so
agree.
I think that
the universe is
emotional
always going to
charge
keep presenting
is
us
somehow
with opportunities to learn this
like
stuff. And
explicitly,
I feel like,
I guess,
that started
abused by
happening for
social
me
media.
long before
It's almost
I
like
married, long before I had my daughter, long before she became ill.
It preys on where they
And
are
what I
developmentally.
have
if that
thought a
makes
lot
any
about
sense.
in
I just feel like they're
retrospect
just,
is that my own suffering
and I feel like
was not
it's
enough
created to do that, so that makes me really angry.
because
But I feel
of the
like that
type
the
of
girls,
childhood I had
are
and
feeling
the issues that I needed
the
to work on healing
comparison,
from.
and they're
My
feeling
own
the
suffering was
the
never going to be
constant
enough
judgment of
to
themselves
break that
against
shell
others and
or
against
peel back that onion or whatever
a
way you
sense
like
of
to look at it.
perfectionism. And we,
It
we
wasn't
know
until I
that
saw my
perfectionism is not
daughter
possible. Being
suffering
perfect is not possible.
and the
And
suffering of my own self was so
I've
profound. Those
worked
two
with
things
girls and
together
discussing with them
was
the
what was
difference between
required
like
for me to hit my
perfectionism
emotional
and
rock
excellence.
bottom
And like,
before I
let's
could
talk.
then
Yeah,
go,
excellence is so different. Like, let's define how you see
that's
excellence.
okay.
And
Now
because
I'm starting
that's
to
a verb.
understand
And perfectionism
why
is like
I
this
have
pie in
this
the sky
all
thing.
backwards.
So
And
I
why
think
my therapist has been saying this for so
I think
long,
that's why
and
girls
why
are
taking care of
specifically
myself is so
more
important. And
affected
I wasn't
by it.
fooling
I think their
anybody really
emotionality,
with my low
is that a word,
self-esteem,
emotionality? I think I
including
may have made that up.
myself,
But we'll
and
see.
issues like
It
that.
worked. It worked. There you go.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more
So you're
about
helping them
your
develop
experience
coping
supporting
strategies.
your daughter.
And this
And
is
so much of
kind
what
of where
you
I'd
wrote
like to go
about
with this
is
conversation
exactly
is
parallel
there
to
are
my
healthy
experience
coping
with my
strategies,
daughter.
and there
The
are
noticing that there
coping
is
strategies we
something
use
going
that are
on,
actually
getting
like
the diagnosis,
detracting.
the getting the
So
support. It's
before
not
we get
enough
into
support,
the
getting
unhealthy
deeper
coping
support,
strategies,
and then the ups
would
and
you
downs
just
of it
share
all.
with us a little bit about
And so one of the
what
things
you
that
found to be
stood out to
helpful
me
for these girls
that I
who are
would like
feeling
to talk about for a
anxious
moment
in
is how
managing
when
that
your daughter
anxiety?
returned from
Sure.
one of her
I
treatments,
feel like
she
girls
for the
really
disordered
appreciate
eating, her self-harming
knowing the
really
science behind
ramped up.
anxiety. And so I
that
have
you were
like
told
this
that
real
this is
simple model
normal.
where like I hold up my
This is a
hand
normal part,
and you know your brainstem's
that's
here
why
and your
it's
limbic
so
system and your frontal lobe.
challenging.
And I
So
explain to girls, you know, when
tell me a little bit more
your
about
bodies respond as they would
explain
have back
how
when we were
you
cave women to a
navigated
saber-toothed
the ups
tiger.
and downs
Our
of
bodies
that. Like,
produce the
of course, you
chemicals,
had
the fight or
therapy,
flight, and our brains literally go
how
offline. We flip
was
our
your
lid.
experience in
And so the
supporting
part
her
of your
through,
brain that
like,
thinks about thinking
we're
does
dealing
not
with
think
this
about
behavior,
thinking.
but this new behavior is
And
popping
the
up?
parts of your brain that make you
And
feel
how did you
anxiety,
remain
like your heart
supportive through
racing, feeling
Well,
short of
I mean,
breath,
I think the
your,
short
your hands
answer
feeling
is at the
tingly.
beginning
There's
and
a
for a long
science
time not
behind
well.
why your body
I
responds
mean,
that way
we
and why your
were
nervous system
completely
does. And
unprepared
to learn
for any
how,
of this,
you know,
as
to
any
hack
parents
that with
are when
something
their
as simple
child
as
starts to
breathing
struggle.
techniques.
And
Like,
I just
you know,
had this
box breathing
belief
or,
that
you know,
it
I
was
think
like,
breathing
okay,
techniques,
I'm
girls are
just
always
going to
like,
do what they
really,
say,
Suzanne. I'm like, no,
and you know,
really.
okay,
They
this is
really work.
happening.
And so I have to,
We'll
like,
get her
prove
into
it to them. We have to
therapy.
practice.
You know,
And,
she'll do what they say.
yeah,
We'll
that's
take
why I
the
love teenage girls, because
recommendations,
they're so
and you
skeptical.
know,
They're like,
she'll understand she has to
and
eat
so-
food to stay
and
alive,
so when you can
and you know,
hack
all
your
these
nervous
things,
system and calm
and then
yourself
we'll just
down, your
get
brain
on
goes
with our
back
lives.
online,
And
your
of
brain's like
course,
this
as
happy
you
little
so
brain
eloquently
again.
described, that is
And
exactly
so
not
working
what
through the
happened.
science helps them
So
become more curious about their future
I did not
reactions.
have the
And so
skills
I like to give
that
girls,
I had
you
to
know,
learn
I call it
again
not
down the
homework, because it's
line.
not
I
homework,
didn't
but it
understand
is an
this yet.
assignment.
So if she
To
became
become
upset,
more
I instantly
curious
became
about
upset. And
how,
then, you know,
when
it was
you
a
feel
huge
your anxiety
chaos and
rise,
crisis, and
where
there's
does it land
yelling
in
and
your
crying
body?
and screaming and whatever.
And I explained to them, like, mine lands
you
in my
know,
throat. It's so weird.
every
It's like I've
time
been
it
yelling at
changed,
like a
you
concert
feel
or a game, like
Yeah.
some, you know, some big contentious game.
okay,
I've
we
been
did
screaming for
this
3
and it
hours.
didn't
It's the
work.
strangest feeling.
It's
And
just,
so
it's very
they are to pay attention to
demoralizing.
where it lands.
And
And
what
then,
I wish
and then
I
wherever
could have
that
done
lands is like
better,
your body's signal to
and I
you.
think this is
And
totally
so
normal, but I still wish I
my
could have
goal
done a
is
better
for
job,
girls to feel more in
is I
touch
feel like we
with their
miss the
bodies,
forest for
because
the
our bodies
trees.
are
And
our
what I mean
natural
by
alarm
that is my
systems.
mother had passed
And
away
we
very
can
suddenly,
calm ourselves down
like 3
through
weeks before
breathing.
my
We
daughter's
can tell our
symptoms
nervous
began.
systems it's
Anecdotally,
okay, and our
this
brain
is
can get
something
back
I'm hearing
online.
more and
We can
more
think
as I
more
go on this
logically,
journey, that
and we
you know,
cannot have
significant
such
loss
erratic
happens, and then the
responses.
child
Because I
is
know
struggling.
girls get
So
really
that's one
frustrated
thing.
with
I
their
hope
erratic
somebody's
responses.
researching, you know,
You
better
know,
ways
living with
for
teenagers
all
myself,
of
it's
us
hard as a
parents and
parent when
providers
they
to
have
handle
erratic
situations
responses,
like
and as
this.
a parent,
But
you know,
it's like we became
we're
so
from the moment
focused
we
on the symptoms,
you know,
the
get
not
pregnant with our kids.
eating,
We're
or
carrying
the
these
eating and
humans. We
vomiting,
keep
or
them
the
alive. We love
self-harm,
them. We
which of
protect
course,
them. And then all of a
again,
sudden,
makes
they
perfect
want to be
sense. These are
individuals, and
very
they individuate and push themselves
behaviors
away,
our
and they become
children
independent, and then they
adults can
start yelling
engage
at
in.
us. And it's
But I
just this
also
whole
feel
weird
like we got
situation.
so
And it's
wrapped
hard
up
as a
in
parent
that,
to
and we
not
were
meet
so
your
scared,
daughter's,
and again,
you know,
not having
emotional
good tools
state.
to call on,
And so
that it just became
and I
about
think, and
symptom
girls, when they become
management, or trying to
aware of that
manage the
heightened emotional
the
state,
symptoms
they
without
realize
having
that
a better
they have the option, they have the
understanding of what was
responsibility,
going
which is
on
not a
with
scary word. It's
her,
their
with the
ability
whole
to
family,
respond. You have the
how
ability
to
to
manage
respond
our
to this by calming
reactions.
yourself
So
down
Yeah,
and taking
I
control
mean,
of yourself.
when you're going
You can
through
do this. You
that,
have this power.
if I had
And I
known
think that's
then
such
what
a
I know
that's like the number
now,
one
I
thing
would
I
have
want
handled
girls
my
to
own
understand is that
self-care much
you do have the
differently.
power
You
within
know, I
yourself
was
to
reacting to
calm
everything,
yourself
not
and to get your brain
responding.
working again.
I had no mechanism for
Yeah,
being able
and
to
basically
remain
what I'm
calm.
hearing
Neither
from
did
you
my
is
husband,
it's
and so we were just
educating,
in a
so
constant state of
understanding what's
chaos.
going on.
Yeah, and
Awareness
that's
of
really
how it
the
lands for
chaos
you
is the underlying
specifically,
theme
and then
of
strategizing
walking
on
through
how to
this with
proactively care for
a child who is
yourself
struggling with
so that
mental
it doesn't
health.
sweep
It's
you
the
away in those
unpredictability of it
moments.
all. It's the lack
Yes,
of
absolutely. And
understanding,
the
the
awareness
lack
is
of
the key.
resources, the lack
And
of
naming the
really
emotion
just
and
clarity
understanding
on
it
what am I
and
supposed to
accepting
do.
it and saying,
And of course,
"Hey,
it's
anxiety,
like
here
you're
you
in a
are.
constant state
You're
of
not
fight or
the
flight,
beast I
and you're
thought you were.
prepared for
You
the other shoe to
are
drop
my body
at all
actually
times,
trying to take care
even
of
when
itself.
things are quote
Because if I
unquote
were still a
going
cave
well
woman,
or
this
better.
response would help me get
It's
away
like,
from the
okay, well,
saber-tooth
when's
tiger.
this all
So
going to fall
it's,
apart? And, I
evolutionarily,
got to
it's
be
worked for
prepared
us,
for
right?
that.
And so
So
I
your
feel like
nervous
our brain, and your
system is
brain's trying to
taxed.
help you.
And so
when
when
you
something
say,
happens,
"All
a
right, girl,
behavior
I hear you,
or
I see
a
you. I'm going to
disagreement
calm you
or
down,
a
and
fear
we're going to figure
of
this
this
out
might
together."
set
So it's
her
almost like
off
teaching
and
the girls
completely
the
derail
parts of
her,
themselves
that's
that work
going to impact your
together.
ability to
And
stay
you can
calm
love your
or
anxiety.
to stay
No, it
grounded
sounds crazy
and
at first,
access
but
your
you can
rational
embrace it.
decision
And
making
I think
mind
girls that
when it's
have
time.
heightened anxiety are our
And so it
sensitive
kind of
girls.
adds to the
And our
chaos.
sensitive girls are
And
the
I
ones
know
that change the
for
world.
myself, it
They're the
wasn't
ones
until I went
that
through this
can,
experience with my
they're
daughter that I
empaths.
realized that I was codependent
They
with her.
love hard, and
From her, the
they're
moment she had found out
loyal,
she was
and they're
pregnant,
brilliant,
I was
and
pregnant with her.
and
There
they're
was a
the ones
codependency.
that,
And as
to
such,
me, they're what
I
we've been
took on
waiting
her
for.
emotions
Yes.
from the moment
Yeah.
she was born.
You
I
and
knew
I
when she needed to
completely
eat.
agree
I knew
on
when she
that.
was
And
tired.
we're
I
on the
get
same
anxious
page
when
with
I know
that.
it's time for her to go to bed.
And
all the way through. And so
really,
it's
the
like our
point is to
anxiety
be able to
feed it off,
foster
fed off
and
each
hone
other
in that special
that whole
gift that
time.
they
And it
have,
wasn't until
so that the
she was
challenging
really
parts
in
of it don't
crisis and getting
undermine
treatment
their
and in a
ability
residential
to
program
function
that I was able
effectively
to step
and
back
do
and
what
be
they
like,
want to do ultimately
I
in
see
this
what's happening
world
here.
and in their life.
And that is
And
not helpful, which goes
I
back
love
to
how you're
the whole
explaining
importance
how
of
all of
having
this
conversations
is
with a therapist
really just
so that they can be
creating a
presented to you.
space
Because I had no
for
idea
them to
up until
be
that
honest
point.
with it and not fight
Yes,
against
and it
it.
brings in, for my
Yes.
perspective anyway, the
essentially that can
generational
cause
trauma
even more
aspect of it.
levels of anxiety
Because
and
these are
stress
patterns
and
that
tension
repeat.
and make it even
And
worse.
so, you know,
Whereas we
whether
put our
I
arm
happen
around it
to
and
do
walk
have a
alongside it and
diagnosis
say,
of
hey, this
complex
is a part of me.
PTSD,
I see you
but
there.
I just
And
received
I'm
that
also going to
diagnosis
care
a
for
couple
you
years
through this.
ago. And
And
so
we're
I've been in and
partners.
out of therapy since I was
Right,
30.
we
I'm
live together.
56. So this
We're
was
roommates.
like
You're my roommate that I
altering.
asked for.
It just made
You're here.
so
No
many
less.
things make sense.
Yeah.
But my point is, whether
Yeah.
or not
So,
you know, you
absolutely
don't have to have a
fantastic. And so
diagnosis to have
another one of
unhealthy
the things, the
patterns
reasons why
passing
I
down
wanted to
through
bring you on this
families.
podcast,
So,
it
you know, in a
revolves
grander
around
scheme of being
finding
cycle
coping
breakers, these are the
mechanisms
kind
that
of
aren't
things
exactly
we want to
healthy.
look for, whether
One
we
of
deem
which
ourselves to be
is
traumatized
alcohol.
or not, because I
And I know
gaslit
personally
myself
from
for
my
most of my
perspective,
life, you know,
alcohol is something
because
that
I didn't grow up
I
in
have turned to in
poverty.
the
I
past when
grew
I've
up
been
with
feeling
two parents
anxious
in the home. I
to
wasn't
like
sexually or
quell the
physically
anxiety.
abused and
And
all these things. It was like,
fortunately, I'm
you know,
not
what do
really
I have
at
to
the place
complain
where I'm
about?
doing that anymore.
Well,
And I
that's
know,
fine to have discernment
especially
as an
for the
adult, but
younger
when we're, you know, being
generation,
born
as they're
and
still
we're being
learning
raised, we don't
about
have that kind of
themselves,
cognitive
and
wherewithal.
especially at that
So,
age, high
you
school.
know,
And I know you work mostly with college
just
students,
didn't
but that same
understand because I couldn't see
adolescent, I'm
it,
still
the
figuring
reality.
out who I
And
am
again, this isn't about
stage.
parent
It
bashing
can
or
be really
family bashing,
tempting
because I actually
Yeah.
never
to
had
just,
more
hey, you know what, I'm feeling
compassion
anxious.
for
I'm
my
going to go to
parents
this
than I
party and
did
I'm
when I
going
fully
to
began to
drink
understand,
alcohol
because
and
it didn't
to
start with
excess.
them either, you know.
And
So it's
we've
just
connected
so
on
important,
your
because
history
why is
of
it we think
becoming
we
sober,
can't or
and
we don't
that's
know,
part
you know,
of
how to
the
be there
layer
for
of
our
it that I wanted to
kids?
bring on.
Well,
So
how would we know
if we could just
if we
shift a
didn't
little bit
learn
into
that,
the
you know,
context
way
of
back when?
alcohol use,
So it is
and
often
Okay.
in situations
if you wouldn't
like
mind just
ours,
sharing a little bit about your
where
experience with it, and
whatever
then we can
was
talk a little bit
working,
about how
you
that
know,
could
quote
apply to
unquote, because
parents
we
and
have
also teenagers.
codependency in my
Oh, yes,
situation
certainly.
100% as
I
well.
love to talk about it. I feel
But
like
it
that,
usually requires
because I
something
bring
like a
my
crisis
presence is
or
no
whatever
shame and no
when the
judgment when it
functioning
comes to
of the whole
conversations around
is
alcohol
interrupted
and any substance use.
for I
think
to kind
that's
of break
part of the reason
open,
kids suffer is
that
because of the
sliver
shame that's
of
connected with it,
space
and
to
the reason
start
why they
going,
don't
oh,
communicate
wait
with
a
their
minute,
parents and other adults, and they don't
you
seek
mean
help
not everybody
when
is
they
like
need
this?
it,
Not
because
everybody
we have a
thinks
culture that
this way
shames
about
people.
themselves?
And
Not every,
it's unfortunate.
whoa, are you
But
kidding?
so I have
I mean, it
chosen
can
to
be
stop
really
drinking.
shocking.
I have been
It's like
alcohol-free
shining
for
the
over
light
2
on
years
all the
now,
parts
and
of you that you
it's been
didn't
wonderful.
even
It's one
want
of
to
the best
see.
decisions I've ever made for myself as an adult.
Like, I didn't need to
And
know that, but
I'm
I'm
not an
glad I do.
alcoholic.
And that's the whole point. It's
I've
the
never had a
cycle
DUI. I've
breaking.
never lost a job.
You're
I've
going
never
to
had a
address those
relationship
things so that
end
they
or have
don't
issues
carry
because of
on
alcohol. So,
for your
when
kids,
you
for
tell
their
people you
kids and
stop
such.
drinking, they
And
automatically
I love that
assume
you highlight the
that,
fact that this isn't
they picture like
placing blame
somebody
on
on
anything.
the
And
street corner with a
that's
paper bag, which
the
is so
whole
sad. Because
truth
number
of
one, the person on
generational
the street corner
trauma
with a
is
paper
everybody
bag
is
doesn't want to be
working
there
from the
either,
conditions
right?
for which
Like,
they're presented.
where is our
So
compassion?
there's no blame
But
here.
also,
It's just you are where you are,
there's an
and you make
automatic shame
decisions as you
response to
go.
it.
And
so,
both you and I have been
grew
in
up with a
situations
normal
where
family.
we've
I
been
was an only
thrown
child to
into
two good time,
life
fun parents.
experiences
My
where
parents
we
were
were
always the
forced
first people
to
on the
look at
dance floor.
ourselves. And
Super
I've
fun.
learned a
They
lot
would. My
through, and
mom
it
loved
sounds like you
wine,
have
or
too.
still loves wine. My dad
Which
drinks
brings me
beer.
to
Like,
the
that's
next
just
thing that I
their
wanted to bring
culture.
up. Was the
Drinking was just something that
experience
was
you
fun.
had
And
when
so,
the
I went,
idea was presented to you to have your
I
daughter
never really,
participate
I
in an
never thrown
intensive
up from drinking in
outpatient
my whole
therapy program,
life. It's so
and your
interesting.
immediate
And so I
concern
went
was,
to
oh gosh, well,
college and
what
had
about our
fun. I
education,
was in college in the
right?
90s
And
where it was
of
just
course you're going to be concerned
everybody
about
drank and
that,
had fun.
but
And then
the
where I
person,
went to
the
graduate
therapist, had
school was
said to
another
you, an
fun,
education won't
school
matter, and
where,
she kills herself.
big football team and tailgating and
I
just,
read that and I
just
was
fun.
like,
And so
whew,
when I was
it
a
is
young
true.
teacher, I had a group of
And your parental,
teachers that
you're
we would go out with
parenting
after
from
the Friday night football
everything
games,
is
or maybe
quote
like
unquote
after
normal.
a Thursday or whatever, and we'd
So
go to a bar and have
education
a
is
few
a top
drinks and
priority.
just nothing.
But
I didn't
if your
question
child
it,
is
just
suffering
kept
to the
living.
point where their safety and their life is at risk,
Always,
education
had to,
does not
I'm always
matter.
one of those
And
people
that's
who had to get
something I
straight
talk
A's,
with
right?
a lot
And
of
so
the parents that I work
I
with
fought the
about.
perfectionism.
So
And so I
in
realized,
looking back
moving into
on
like my
that,
20s and 30s,
tell me a
when
little
I
bit more
had
about
no
like
issue with
how
it.
that went
But
when
I
she
was
started
recognizing
healing
that
and
I
her
had anxiety.
educational journey after you were able to
Because
step
I'm
back
so
and
driven,
prioritize mental
and
health.
I was
Tell
very
me a little bit
anxious.
more about the journey.
And so moving
Sure,
into
I
like
really
my later
appreciate that
30s, I
question.
believe
Well, first of all,
there's
I
like
think
confluence of a lot of
again
things.
we
And I
can
think one
tie
of
this
those
to
is
generational
working with
expectations,
perimenopause and hormone
right?
changes.
Because those are expectations that get handed
being
down
a
to
high
us.
school
I was
assistant
expected to get an
principal with
education,
2 children,
go to college,
renovating,
I
an
never
18th
questioned
century
that. I just did it
farmhouse,
because that's
and
what was
I mean,
expected, and so
running
I had a
10Ks.
daughter, and she
What
was
else am I
going to go
supposed
to
to do,
school,
right?
and she was
Like,
going
I
to
was like,
graduate.
I'm gonna can tomatoes this
So
weekend.
that's
Like,
the point of
I
view
was
that
doing too
you
much.
look at it
And
from,
so
again,
alcohol
until you're
was my
challenged
friend.
in this way.
And
And
so
then
when
it
I
was
had a
like,
hard day at school,
perhaps not the most
with,
delicately presented
everything
to
that would
me, but at
happen,
that
I mean,
point, it was like,
it's crazy
I think
how
the time for
just
delicacy,
one day in the life
was
of an
over.
assistant principal can be.
So
Like, that's a whole other podcast.
yes,
we'll have to have.
so
I'll show you
at
some
that
stories.
point, we did pull her out of school. It would have been 8th grade, so she missed most of her
I
8th
would come
grade
home
year.
and I would need
So
to like
she
come down for
then
that
went to
experience.
treatment
From having
full
been
time
under,
at
from
that.
things like
She
being
could
under
live at home
fluorescent
at that
lights all
point,
day,
and
and
she was
with
going to the
2,200
treatment center in our
humans
town.
and teenagers, no doubt.
But it again
And
quickly
so,
became
wine
clear
was the
that the
thing. I would come
behaviors
in the house
were
with my kids, get
worsening
them started with
instead of
homework,
getting
start
better.
dinner, and I would
So
pour
it
a glass
wasn't
of
long
wine.
before they were
And it was
telling
just
us
what
she
I
needed
thought was
residential
self-care.
treatment.
And so,
education and
I
residential
didn't
treatment
know
is,
until I started
theoretically it happens,
reading and
but
paying
of course,
attention.
realistically it doesn't.
I remember
So
reading
we
somewhere that your
just
liver needs a
had to
break that you should
accept,
take.
work
People
on
that drink should
accepting
have
that,
at
we
least
would
3
deal with her education
consecutive non-drinking
in
days a
whatever
week
way
in order
made
for your liver
sense
to
when we were able
rebound
once
from
again
drinking. And I
to
was
do
like,
that.
okay, cool, that's easy.
And so
I mean,
what that looked
I
like
had
for
2
us
kids, breastfed
is
2
we
kids, and I didn't drink.
went
Like,
through
I can
the
do this.
IEP process.
But let me tell you that the
We
first
snuck it
day,
in under the
I don't know if it was the
wire
first day,
of
but my
what would have
memory
been
of
the
this
end
is
of the
when
school
I told
year
myself I
for
couldn't
her for
drink,
8th grade,
I was so mad.
so
I
that
felt
we got
deprived.
approved and
And I was
had
like, wait a
available
minute, I do
services
everything else
for
right. Why
summer.
can't I
So
have a
she
glass
got
of
some
Chardonnay?
tutoring
Like,
in
that
math
is
and
my
English
reward. That is
for
how
that
I calm
summer,
myself.
and
That's going
then
to
she
help me
was able to
sleep.
start
You
her
know, it's going to
freshman
help me
year
feel
of
better.
high
The whole
school
mommy
with
wine
all her
culture
friends,
runs
and
rampant, right?
that's what she wanted
Like, that's
to do.
a big thing.
So we
And
also
so
then had support
I
through
was
the
suffering
IEP
from what I know now is
while
cognitive
school
dissonance,
was in session.
where
So she
my
had support
conscious
with the
brain
school
knew that
psychologist.
alcohol
We
was,
had a
I probably
wraparound
shouldn't be drinking.
program.
But my
And a variety
unconscious
of
brain
things,
was like,
and there were a lot of
screw it,
checks and
Suzanne. Like,
balances
you
in
have a hard
place
day
helping
and
her
you do everything right,
socially,
and who cares?
emotionally.
It's Chardonnay.
It was
Who
not all easy, of course, for her or for us. And she felt she would have to leave class sometimes, and that made her feel really upset. Like it was so obvious that something was going on.
Deteriorate because
but ultimately,
thinking about it all the time.
The IEP process and having an IEP in place, which she kept, she actually did so well.
And so
we
an anxious
worked
brain
out
like
of
mine
it by her
went
senior
into like
year.
this
but
spiral
it just afforded us so many services that we would not have had access to if not for that process, and that's why it's there. I mean, the individualized education plan is exactly there to help kids who have needs like this.
So it was like a 30-day break.
So,
and I was like, you know what, I want to do this.
But it was reiterated
September, the end of summer,
when she went into residential treatment because the first place didn't work, and so
vacation
that we left there, and there was another place.
Overindulging,
but it was said in another way there that really resonated with me because all of us parents were worried and struggling with the same thing. Our kids aren't in school. What's going to happen with their education? And it was another one of the moms whose son was graduating from that program who said, I know how hard it is to hear, but like there's GEDs there. And it's so true when you stop back and think, like after you graduated from high school, did anyone give a crap? I mean, was anybody like, show me that? I mean, yes, you need, your diploma, but it's not like, I'm like, who cares? You did it and like whatever. There's lots of ways to get it done is my point. But again, we have our thoughts about it, and until they get challenged, that's what we think. And it's supposed to go that way.
Right.
My anxiety.
That's so true.
Plummeted.
And it's interesting. My daughter also got her IEP at the very end of her 8th grade year. And it was really a lifesaver for us to be able to have that communication with the school. So that really does highlight the importance of having your network and your team and not feeling like you need to do it all on your own. Because that's too much of a burden to bear.
That was really frustrating.
Completely agree. And, I don't know how it went for your experience, but for our experience, we got,
like this goes against,
I hate to use the word pushback because that makes it sound like they just didn't want to do it. And I think the counselor at the school was just kind of clueless. So it wasn't that they were so against it. It's like the thought just didn't even enter her mind. So it was my therapist who happens to have a relationship with the school district who was like, this is what I want you to do. So I'm just sharing that to say, like, don't, like, because for a while they were saying, like, well, she's not at school. What can we do about it? And we're like, well, aren't you supposed to tell us? Like, what are we supposed to do about it? Like, who's supposed to be in charge of this situation? And so don't take no for an answer is what I'm saying. I mean, sometimes you're just talking to people who don't know what they're talking about. And there's laws about this kind of stuff, at least for now. So, you just go in and say, this is what's happening. We need help. I know there's things, to help us. What's the process? What do we do?
During COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Which is I agree with you. They're on your side, but they may not be seeing
something
what you're
in me
seeing.
was like, you're going to stop.
Your daughter sounds like.
And so I had like this slow goodbye because it was like a lifestyle I had to let go of.
And her academics might have been okay, so they didn't see any concern for it.
I went on this vacation with my husband.
I mean, you said that your daughter was missing
on our anniversary trip,
and we were on Isle of Palms in South Carolina. I worked at the school that she was at, so I happened to know the people there.
Like it was like this burning, just panic inside of me, and I had no reason to be anxious. I was with my favorite person on the planet. My kids were safe at my house with my dogs and my in-laws. Everything was fine.
The challenges
I was dying inside.
You can get the support
went out on the beach one morning, couldn't sleep, left my husband because I was like, just sleep.
Absolutely. And a lot of times it's as simple to your point of that, they're looking at my daughter, similar to yours, who they don't have learning disabilities. It's not about that kind of thing. So they're kind of forgetting the social emotional part.
The sun was coming up,
and just because that's not a standard, at least then, I don't know if it is now, but that was not a standard part of the testing process. So they were kind of like, what are you talking about?
You don't let your husband down. You don't let your kids down. You don't let your students down.
It's like, yeah, well, that's not the whole story. Just like for any human being on the planet, who we are outside is only a sliver of who we really are.
And
that is so true.
That was it.
And
that was over 2 years ago. And so I just,
more recently,
it's been the strangest journey, but most beautiful journey of my life.
And non-academic needs.
I've learned how to actually coach people through stopping drinking alcohol through this whole process. I'm a certified This Naked Mind coach, which is, who knew?
Mental health in general. So
incredible.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder. So
it all really starts with curiosity around things and awareness.
There was just part in the book
you're teaching your clients that you work with
like,
on anxiety.
Was she with
the same thing?
Because the experience was so
is having this open-minded awareness
when you were in the
an
ER
evaluation
with your daughter waiting for
is how is this impacting my life,
and
is this what I want to continue?
It's like an out-of-body experience to be in that situation.
That you brought up,
you're
tired,
that
discomfort.
There's a
came with
there's
the change.
People, there's chaos. There's people coming in,
even though it was something you were doing on purpose and you wanted.
And there was like, is this my life? Is this really happening?
And
but
same
the fact
thing
that you
with
have
the
to
high achieving perfectionistic
for that bed,
very
there's a lack of places
motivated,
for them to go. There's just a lack
the one
of
who does
resources,
it, especially women who are the nurturers and
going
do it
through
all,
that,
take care of
and
the
I collect
house and
trauma
the
because
kids
for
and
me it
everything.
was part of my trauma.
I deserve this glass
and then
of
returning
wine.
home,
I worked hard
after she's gone
and I
to
need
where
this
she's
break.
safe.
Yes.
And then even
And
if you're
seeing the empty
consciously
room.
deciding, this
It's
is
like-
not serving me, I'm just gonna,
like
give it
I
a break.
said, an out of body
You still have that voice in your head. Well,
during that time.
Gosh,
Right.
well, what the
experienced a lot
heck
of
do I get if I don't get this?
a lot of just
I
like
deserve
Right.
right?
Yes.
I'm doing
And
the
to be
things that
able
I
to
know that I need to be
experience
doing
and
to
witness
be
that
a
discomfort
person. I mean, I had another daughter
curiosity
too that I
and
needed to care
compassion
for,
and
and
continue
I've had to do a
forward,
lot of work since
even
then
though
to
you know
heal
that discomfort
from that
is there and it's
experience. But
pushing against, right?
if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit more
desire
about
to change.
how you navigated
Right.
that,
And I think I had to
how
come to
just
terms with that
basically
part of me.
your
that
husband and the dynamic
she
with that, and
thought
just talk a little bit more
the
about
the
that.
drinker in me
Yeah,
thought
I
she was taking
appreciate
care
that
of me.
question too. I mean,
She
the
thought that
simple,
part of me
quick
was like,
answer
Suzanne, you
is
have
not
worked
well.
hard. This is
at
your
that
boundary.
point.
This
I
is
mean,
you come
similarly,
home, so
if
now
I
you
gained
can be
40
a mom
pounds
and
while
not
my
be an
daughter
assistant
was
principal.
going through the
You know,
worst,
now
so
you
like
can
basically
relax.
in a
It's
year.
like now you can go on vacation. You're on
Drank a
vacation
lot
now. It's not
when
vacation until you
she
pour your
was
first drink,
in
right?
residential because
yeah,
it was
like
like
this part of me
you
was
know,
what she was
didn't have
protecting
to
me and
quote
doing what
unquote
she
worry
knew
anymore because she
that
wasn't
she thought was
under
best for
our
me.
same roof.
And
so
and I think a
these
lot of people
methods
when
of
they
coping,
first like
you
stop
know,
drinking, they'll name
dissociation, 12 hours
the
of television a
craving or
day,
the drinker.
when
Like they'll name her
life
like the wine
afforded that
witch, or
opportunity, or
because you name that
eating
other
and
part.
drinking
And so
away
I
the
never liked
pain
that because
was the only way I knew to do it then.
I didn't think it was a bad
So
thing. Like
we did not
I
have
didn't
the
know what I didn't know.
skills. I did not have
You
the
know,
skills
even as like
to
an
make
educated
different
person, I didn't know.
choices. And to
So
your
it's very
point,
interesting how that
also,
works.
I think I was
So
probably. I mean,
accepting that
I'm
that
essentially a
girl inside of
walking
me was
fawn
trying
trauma
to calm
response
anxiety
as an
and
adult
learning that
human. So
alcohol
at that
makes your body
point,
create crazy levels of cortisol.
I agree with you.
which is the
I
stress
don't know
hormone.
what exact
but
moment
that doesn't
I
happen
dissociated, but I think I was probably,
so alcohol
not
is a
in my
depressant. But your body, your
sane,
your
quote
brain's always
unquote,
searching for
mind
homeostasis.
a
Like your
really
brain
long
wants
time
to be
after
balanced.
that point, but
And
didn't
alcohol
really
is the
know that.
depressant.
I
Well,
mean,
it's a
of
depressant
course
and
I
a
knew
stimulant.
I shouldn't,
All the
drink
way
away
around,
my
it's not a
pain
good
and
thing.
eat away my
Your
pain,
brain
but
responds
knowing
and
and
produces
doing
like
are obviously two
dynorphin,
different things,
which is this
especially
chemical.
before
It's
you've
like
done the
actually a
healing
peptide
work
that has reactions in your
to
body.
understand
And then
why
cortisol is
you
produced
started
later.
engaging
So
in those behaviors
that's
in the
why, like,
first
if you
place
wake up
and
at
what
3 in the
purpose
morning
they
after
serve.
drinking, you have to
And
go to the
how
bathroom, and then your
reliant you
mind
are
just is
on
in
them,
overdrive.
and they
And it's
do
because your body
take
is
the
responding
numbing.
to the
The
depressant
whole point
with
of
the
numbing
stimulant.
and why we
So
do
think
it
of
is because it works
that
and it
because
takes
it
the
wants
pain away.
balance. And
So
the
if we
next
don't
day
have
anxiety,
some other
anxiety
way
is
to
real.
deal with that
Like
thing,
a
that's what
hangover
we're
with
going to
anxiety
do.
is a real
Right.
thing.
So
And I
it
never had
took
like
a
debilitating
very long
hangovers because I didn't
time,
drink
and I
enough
would
for that.
say
So I
it wasn't
had,
until
when I
after
did
my
drink, I'd
daughter
have like
came
micro
home,
hangovers.
she was
Right?
able
So it
to
was like
remain
this
home
little,
over
was
summer.
just
She
enough where I
started her
was
freshman year
tired
of high
and where I
school,
just,
and it
would
wasn't
just amp my
easy, but it
anxiety
was
up just a
heading,
little bit. But
in
I didn't
the
understand that it was the
better
alcohol that was
direction
causing
for
that.
her that
And
my
so, like you
therapist
said, the
message
curiosity around it, the
finally
awareness,
cut
and
through. And
approaching
I
it with
think
no
I started
shame.
coming back,
And
to some
yes.
semblance of reality.
That's really what it
and
is,
began to
is-
understand why
and
she
this
had
is
been
how
asking me for
my
a
listeners,
year
if they're
and
listening and they're
3/4
nodding
what
their
I could
head,
do to
yeah,
take
I
care
totally
of myself.
relate to all of this.
And why that would be
And
important, and
of
what
course,
else it
this
would
is
do,
a
not only for
podcast
my
for
daughter to
parents
see
of
me taking
teenagers,
care of
but
myself,
the
but what would it
thread
do for
does
me?
interweave
And what would it
between
mean
Yes.
to my life?
parental behavior
And
and
now
teen
it's been
behavior.
12
So
years,
if teenagers
so
raised in a family
a
where
lot
drinking
has
is
changed.
normalized,
We can only take it
and again,
one
there's
step
no
at a time.
judgment. I'm not
So I
saying
don't
that
want
drinking
somebody,
is bad. You can't
listening
drink if
to
you
us
drink,
who
you're
maybe is
bad.
where
But
we
what I'm
were
saying
or
is
I
that
was then,
to be aware
and think,
of
you
if
just
you
make a
are
decision
drinking, the
and
impact
then,
it's having on you,
lickety
and
split
then
and
also the
everything's
impact
fine.
it's
just,
having on your
sadly,
kids.
much more
So to
complicated than
speak
that
to
usually.
that, with the clients you
But
work with,
having
does this come up?
methodologies to deal
Alcohol
with
use,
discomfort,
I can imagine it does, especially
is
in
a
college.
lot
And
of the
tell
healing
me a little
journey
bit
for
more
me still
about
at this point,
how you,
because
the
those are
conversations around
skills
that
I
go with
never
the
got.
teen girls that you
And
work with.
so it's so
Yes,
easy.
it does
Our
come up.
brains are so
And
powerful,
with
and they
college
do what
drinking,
they
it's
know.
binge
You know,
drinking.
homeostasis is a powerful
It's
force.
not, they're not sitting around at a wine bar having a glass of Chardonnay.
Reminding
they're carrying
myself
those
and
stupid
just,
Borg things.
beginning
and
again
I
and beginning
I can't
again
with
and
that.
continuing to do
I
the
tell them,
work.
I'm like, I'm embarrassed
But
that you say that
it
word.
was,
I know, and I'm so
We're
proud.
not
Like,
talking about
I mean, what I would say to
impressed
someone
that you
who's
know
going
it, but
through
of course I
now
know
what
it
we
too.
went through then is to
And they
survive.
decorate them. What is
Yeah, they
happening?
A,
Yeah.
What is this?
because
It's
that's
hydrate.
To
what
stop.
we need you to do is survive.
I need this
And
to
then
stop.
as you
I
go
can't.
on your
And so-
journey, if you can hear someone asking you to take care of yourself a little sooner than I did,
and
it's
damaging because first of all,
that's going to be a huge
ingesting a
benefit
neurotoxin, which is taking away your ability to make good decisions, and it's taking away your inhibitions.
Yeah, and just to have some
girls
compassion
put themselves
for
in these
yourself,
situations
when you're
where they,
in that survival,
sometimes they'll wake up places where they didn't remember going to sleep,
or for me, as much as I tried,
they will have forgotten a several hour period
for me to actually feel what was going on.
Harmful and on many levels.
And this is actually the next thing I wanted to touch upon.
Not knowing what you're doing is a big deal. And
healing
also
is a
having girls
journey.
understand that their brains are still forming through the age of like 22, 23.
With your daughter,
and so when you introduce,
that same thing with me and my daughter,
like you just add sugar and things to make it taste good, but it's ethanol,
we've had
it's a
3 years
neurotoxin,
where
and it's
there's been no crisis.
It's all bad things, right?
But then I found that I was
something
depressed,
that is
and I'm
good,
like,
and it's
why
what
am I
people do,
depressed?
and
Things are
the
finally
pressure is there.
But it's
it
because,
goes back to what
hey, guess what? Now that things are safe, you can feel these things that you weren't able to feel back then.
And it's about being curious about when you drink.
You're feeling okay, but then you're always needing to be aware.
I don't tell the girls to stop. I'm
things
like,
feel off,
you,
and
honey.
finding, like you
I
said,
don't
that
tell anybody to stop drinking.
homeostasis.
Like, it's
So
your life. You do what you want.
with that in
just
mind,
because
tell
I
me a
haven't
little
had
bit about
alcohol in 2
how
years doesn't
your
mean like
and your daughter's
2 years
healing
down the road,
journey
if
has
I'm in
been
Italy, I'm not going to have a
since
glass
she's
of wine,
been
right? Like
back
I'm
and
not.
in recovery,
saying like I don't
and
even.
how things
I
are
just
going
wanted to be
now.
free of thinking about it.
Well,
And so I don't think about it, and that's what I like. But so I tell the girls,
just better than I could have ever imagined.
Be curious.
I mean, we are 12 years, into this journey. She's going to be turning
your first one. How are you
26.
feeling after your second? However,
I'm dating myself there in December, so about a month from now, actually. So that's very exciting. She loves her job. She lives with her boyfriend. They've been together for several years.
How is this affecting your studies?
She's living her life. It's not perfect, of course. She's not perfect, of course. I'm not perfect.
And
but
they're cognitively not there.
I never had the opportunity to have this relationship with my mom.
This chemical.
I knew the first time I got into therapy, my daughter was 6 months old because I was so concerned that I was going to, not understand why, but just have my daughter feel about me the kind of way that I felt about my mom, because our relationship was so complicated. And it's not that she didn't love me,
here's some information,
all that
think
stuff.
About this. What do you think about
it just didn't work
I like to,
right, quote unquote.
Break down the unconscious beliefs.
To see us now,
for instance, like
to
alcohol
see
tastes good.
The person that she has become, the adult that she's become, the adult that I become now that I'm in my, mid-50s,
the first time I
and the relationship we have coming from not understanding what like a secure attachment would be,
and then I tell them about my great uncle Max,
seeing that more realized, to her individuating exactly the way she's supposed to be doing, but us still have our closeness intact, and to know, to say to each other all the time, I love you, using all 3 words, that's a big deal.
Like I said before, the girls have such
discernment,
and they want to be healthy. And I have found too that this generation,
I just really could not have imagined that things would turn out this way. So I do want people to know there is hope.
And I have
there's a lot of hope.
But
ultimately, I'll say again what I already said: the only people we can control is ourselves. And I firmly believe the only reason that I have the relationship with my daughter that I do is because I finally learned that lesson. I mean, and took my goggles off and pointed them at myself. And was like, okay,
I bet they were there.
We did an exercise that I explain in the book in residential treatment, where it was like I was slapped in the face.
You're using with
now, granted, this was like the worst time of my life. So if I did that exercise at any other time in my life, it wouldn't have gone that way.
Yes.
But the point is, that's where I was, and that's when we did it, and that's what changed things around. And so it's like,
whereas if you say you can't drink,
I talk to a lot of people
you're going to be in
now
big trouble.
In my family, in my friends,
teenagers
and
are going to do
family,
what they're going to do,
and they're struggling, and their relationships are a struggle, and they want other people to this and other people to that.
So to be able to take the coach approach,
but
TM, I just created this. And
there we are.
Hey, listen,
we can't do anything about those other people. The only person we can do anything about is ourselves.
Some teenagers may be willing to do that with their parents, some may not.
I didn't have good friendships. I mean, there was all kinds of relationship problems in my life, and none of that is the same anymore.
So incredibly
and it's not that I'm just so great and whatever. It's like, no, I got stripped
strong
down
assumptions
to the
associated
nub
with
bare.
it, judgments like
hit
alcohol,
the bottom,
and going to a party, and if you're not drinking, then what does that mean about you and the discomfort?
And I
wouldn't being able to
change
plan in advance and talk
and I
about
don't think my daughter
how to
would
handle
either.
the
I would change
discomfort
it
of being
for
the only
her
person at the party who's
because
not
I
drinking.
would never. No one wants their
how to
child
handle
to
what
suffer.
people ask
But
you,
to see
why
where
you're
we
not
are
drinking.
now, I don't think
To
either one would have
adults and the
changed.
teens,
anything we went through
this
to be
crosses
where we
the
are now.
lines. This is all the humans.
It's so beautifully put.
And just like what you said when you were talking about how you made the decision to stop drinking, then you became somebody to help walk people through that as well. And it's the same thing you're doing with the girls that you work with.
To come out on the other
To
side
be able to
closer
support
and with a
someone
better
through
relationship
something,
with each other and with
you
yourselves.
need to know and be able to
And that is a
empathize
really
and
great
understand
reminder
and
to those
potentially
parents
have
who may
gone
be in
through
the
it
thick of
yourself.
right now.
And so
Right.
whether
One step at a
parents have done that
time,
or not,
and this is the end
it all
goal.
really does come down to
This
the
is where
empathy,
you're
the
headed,
understanding,
and to
the
hold on to that
curiosity,
hope
and
that's
what's
what's
connection
possible.
is with all
And
of
I'd
it.
love to be able to just close
Certainly.
this out with a quote
And you
that you had in your book that
willpower
I love
doesn't
so
work.
much, and I would
Willpower
love
can
for
work,
my,
but it runs
my
out.
audience to
And
hear it. And
our
that is,
behavior is
in
driven by
order
our
to
emotions.
connect to anyone
And
else
so,
in compassion,
positive
I
behavior,
first
behavior
had to
change is
connect that
possible
way
when you
with
change your
myself.
emotions behind it. And so that
So
works,
beautiful,
like I was saying, for all the
so
humans,
true in
for
your
the
relationships,
the
with your
teenagers and their
with
parents.
your
And so, and I
personal
think
journey.
healthy
And
conversations about
I
alcohol
loved
are
this book.
essential.
I appreciated it
And
so much.
and and
I will for
it's
sure put a
difficult for
link
me
to
to
the
have
book
conversations
in
with
the
people when they're
description
like,
for the
oh,
show. I highly
my
recommend
house is the
reading
place
it
where
to
kids
all of
can
my
drink
listeners.
because at least I know they're
And
safe.
as we
And
close
they'll
out,
ask me
any
what I
final
think about that,
words?
and I'm
Where
like,
can people
well, do you
find
want
you?
to know the truth?
Tell us
Because,
where people can go from there, from here,
because
if they
kids,
would like to learn more.
Oh, thank
are
you.
you trying
Yes,
to be
so
cool?
I have a very
Because
robust,
the
wonderful
kids are only at your
website,
house
if I
because
do say
that's
so
where they know they
myself.
can drink.
So you
Yeah.
can
Right?
find out all
And they're
about
gonna
me,
they're
and you
gonna
can
laugh
see
and
more
be
about the
nicer to you
book
because
and
you're
about
letting them do what they
workshops
want to do.
and all kinds of things
And
at TracyYokasCreates.com.
that's in my opinion,
So it's
that's
just
not
my
healthy for
name,
the kids.
TRACEYYOKAS,
It's
and the
illegal
word creates.com.
and it's dangerous.
And the book's
And
available
so,
everywhere
but then
books are
also
sold.
the other side
I
is,
really
some parents are
did
like, well,
want
Suzanne, I
to
know
and
my
appreciate you
daughter's
saying
drinking
so more than
and
you
she
know.
lies and goes
Get
and finds
something
ways
into
to
the
do
world so that
And
parents who are going
like you
through
said, that's
now
what
what
kids
we
do.
did
That's what
then
teenagers
would
do,
know
and that's
that
why
they
they're
are not
such
alone.
frustrating little
Because
creatures,
I
right?
thought I was the
And that's
only
why-
person
that's
on
why
the
parents
planet
call us,
who was
because-
suffering like this.
and that's
No
why
one
we-
could possibly
because
understand my
it
pain.
having,
Of course,
like
it
you
didn't
said, the
take me
neutral
very
third
long
party
to realize just
that
how
can be honest
wrong
and
I
say,
was.
I'm not.
And
Our conversation
yes,
is not
I
something I'm going to talk
mean,
to your parents about. Like, this is
understanding
between us.
the need
But this is
to
what you need to
offer
know, sweet girl.
myself
Like, this is the truth.
forgiveness, my
And it's up to you.
self-compassion,
And
all the
girls
things I
especially
wanted
love
to
to
have
feel
for and
empowered.
with my
I
daughter.
love to feel
that
that
I had
they
to have
own
those
their
things
decisions.
for and with
And they
myself
do.
first.
And
really
as a parent, it's hard
changed
to let go and
everything
let them
about
do that.
everything. So
But we
thank
as
you
coaches
so
can
much
say,
for pointing
this
that
is
out
this
and
is your
for
decision.
providing this
This is your
opportunity for
responsibility.
this
And
conversation and all the
responsibility is a
conversations you're
beautiful,
having.
freeing thing.
Well, thank you
Like,
for coming on.
You were
and
able to do
again, I
this. You're
appreciate
able
you taking
to
the time.
make this
and
yours.
This is so valuable. Thank you for the work
and,
you're putting into the world.
That's
I really appreciate you being here.
So
Thank you.
such a great way of putting it. And it really does come down to sending the message that ultimately you are the one in charge of what you decide to do and what you decide not to do in anything.
Right.
And that's what these conversations are all about. And I sense that you and I could probably talk for hours on
Yes.
all of these topics.
Absolutely.
You know, but we've touched on some really important things here, and I am so glad that you came on and shared your story and that your strategies that you use with the girls. And of course, I'm going to put the links to everything so people can know how to find you and reach you in the show notes and everything. But if someone is hearing this and thinking, you know, I really would like to work with her, tell me how you work with people and just give a little overview of that, what that might look like.
Okay. I work with teenage and college girls, so ages like 13 to 23. And I offer coaching packages where we have one-on-one sessions via Zoom. And then I also have communications with the girls between sessions. And the three pillars of my business are self-compassion, self-reliance, and self-confidence. So those are the three pillars we work on. And we begin with self-compassion because that's the place, where we all have to come to terms with we are who we are and we're going to love who we are and we're going to accept. And then self-reliance is the next step because I love when girls realize they have their own backs. And that's part of my passion of doing this. Because like I said, it took me 40 some years to figure it out. So I'm like, I want you to learn in your teens, because can you
Right.
imagine knowing that at their age? It's so exciting. And then, self-confidence is the third pillar, and that's something we'll work on, I think, until we die. But it's, it's important to talk about it. But yes, so I'll offer those packages. And I also have some group coaching with college girls, and that's fun. Yeah.
Okay, well, fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your tools and strategies. This has been a really great conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
I've loved it. Thank you, Jennifer.
If you liked this episode, I'd like to invite you to join Raising Happy Teens, my free online community for parents of teenagers, where every week I host Ask a Coach. You bring your parenting questions, and I provide expert advice and coaching. Click the link in the show notes to join today. I'll see you inside.